as many of you who've seen stories in Inside UW and elsewhere know, we have established a three-part plan to do testing for the COVID-19 virus on campus. Just to briefly talk about those three parts. First, we will be setting up a number of sites on campus where any member of the faculty, staff, or students can go and get tested free of charge for COVID-19. Jake Baggett will talk more about those on-campus test sites in a moment. Secondly, we will be testing all of the residents of the dormitories on a biweekly basis throughout the time that students are on campus. In addition, dorm students will be tested on their arrival at UW-Madison with the suggestion that they lie low for the first couple of days until the test results come back. The third piece of our three-part plan is a surveillance program that will allow us to truly know what the prevalence of the virus is on campus. So that surveillance program comes in two parts. First, we will be establishing cohorts of about 1,000 UW-Madison faculty, staff, and graduate assistants who will be followed longitudinally and tested weekly to monitor for the presence of the virus. The other part of that surveillance program is to have 300 to 500 undergraduates randomly chosen from those students living off campus come in for testing at one of the on-campus test sites each week. Those students will be provided some incentive to do so, and the combination of those two programs will allow us to very accurately estimate the prevalence of COVID-19 on campus. In fact, given the sizes of those two groups, we would be able to see a frequency of viral infection as low as 0.3% with some degree of accuracy. So in order to perform all that testing, we needed to establish a testing lab on campus. It was not possible to depend solely on outside vendors for those tests. So we were very fortunate in establishing a relationship between the Wisconsin State Lab of Hygiene and the Wisconsin Vet Diagnostic Lab in order to do so. So as many of you know, the State Lab of Hygiene is a clinical diagnostic lab that has a statewide mission to perform a wide variety of human diagnostic tests. The Vet Diagnostic Lab is very experienced in performing tests exactly of the type that we will be doing for COVID-19 and has the capacity to expand so that it can perform the testing that we needed on campus. So in order to do that, we had to get approval for the State Lab of Hygiene to extend its authorization to do human diagnostic testing to the Vet Diagnostic Lab. We, in fact, just got that approval last Friday. So we've been building the new laboratory within the Vet Diagnostic Lab. It's required significant equipment as well as personnel, and they're well on their path to being able to perform testing at the level of 6,000 to 10,000 tests per week beginning in September. Now, it is a complicated process setting up a new lab like that, and we anticipate that that until the Vet Diagnostic Lab is fully up and running, we will have some testing needs on campus, and those testing needs will be served by contracts that we have with outside vendors, including Exact Sciences, to perform tests as needed until the Vet Diagnostic Lab is able to take up the full load of campus testing. So as you will appreciate, this is a very complex area that moves rapidly, and we are continuing to evolve our testing strategy as new developments occur. So for example, we're exploring currently a pooling strategy that would allow us to screen a much larger number of campus members, depending on the prevalence that we see in our surveillance program. So let me very briefly address just a few questions that come up frequently in conversations about the testing program. First of all, what kind of test are we using? We're using the reverse transcriptase PCR test that was originally developed at the CDC, but we're modifying it to provide for higher throughput and also to allow for unsupervised collection of samples. Those approvals will have to go through FDA, but we can continue to use that test as the approval is obtained. So how are we monitoring off-campus students? Well, I talked about the surveillance program, randomly choosing 300 to 500 off-campus undergraduates to come in and get tested each week. But in addition, many students will be encouraged to use the on-campus test sites, especially if they are symptomatic or have reason to believe that they were recently exposed to the virus. How will sample collection take place in dorms? We anticipate using an unsupervised collection model where the students will obtain the sample themselves and drop it off in the dorms in a specified location. What turnaround time do we have for the testing? So during the period of time that Exact Sciences is performing the test, we expect turnaround between 48 and 72 hours. We hope that when the vet diagnostic lab is fully up and running, we will be able to return test results within 24 hours of sample collection. And then finally, how are samples collected? So we will be using a lower nasal swab. So this is not the very intrusive nasopharyngeal swab that many of you have heard about in the public press, but one that is rather easily obtained by an individual using just a regular swab in the lower nasal passage. Those samples will then be sent to the diagnostic lab for analysis.